In this video, I'm going to teach you how to juggle, but in the process of doing that, I'm going to teach you some techniques and principles that will help you learn any other difficult thing that is currently challenging you and holding you back in your life right now. Now, the cool thing about this is we all know that if we immediately put into practice those things that we learn, we're going to retain it better, we're going to learn it more efficiently, and it's just going to be better all around. And so in the process of learning how to learn, you are going to be learning how to juggle, putting it into practice, making the circle complete. So let's get to it. Let's learn how to juggle. Now, of course, if you're learning how to juggle, the first thing that you need is something to juggle. And so we're going to be recommending our own throwback skill toy juggling bags or stage balls. You can get these on yoyotricks.com. And the bags are especially good because they don't bounce. They're not going to roll away from you, which will help in the learning process, as we'll get to later. But if you're just looking for something around the house to get you started, baseballs are about the best thing that you can find. They're exactly the right size and weight that you need. A lot of people like to try tennis balls because they come in sets of 3. Now those are a little on the light side and they're bouncy, so they're more difficult to catch, but they'll work in a pinch. If you're super desperate, you can ball up some socks and get started with those until you can get some legitimate juggling equipment. But once you have your equipment, let's get started. Now, when I think about learning any new thing, the way that I think about it is that it is an exercise in failure manipulation. And what I mean is most of us, failure is kind of like the beast that we try to avoid. If failure is over here, we run over here. But what you actually want to do when you're really trying to learn the best that you can is you want to manipulate failure, not so that it makes you depressed, but so that it brings you to success. And so what I want you to do first is you actually need to find your failure. You need to locate the beast and you need to tame it, to manipulate it, to bring you to where you want to go. And that might sound backwards, but once you can lay hold of this idea, you're going to learn a whole lot faster. So when you are trying to find your failure, what you really want to do is you want to take that thing that you're learning and you want to break it down into smaller and smaller parts until you have found the smallest aspect of that thing you're trying to learn that will still cause you to fail. So if you're thinking about music and you're playing through a chord progression, maybe there's 2 chords that you're having a difficult time transitioning. And so it is that transition, it is that small moment, that's your failure. You have found it, that's the thing that you want to focus on. And with juggling, it is the same thing. You want to break it down into smaller and smaller aspects until you figure out what is it that is actually causing you to fail. And with juggling, it's really easy because we have 3 balls. We can always take away a ball and practice with 2, or even better, we can just start with 1. So that's where we're going to start. We're going to just start with 1 ball. Now with 1 ball, what you want to do is you just want to toss the ball up in the air and catch it with the other hand. And here's a little secret, that's all juggling is. It's just throwing the ball up and catching it again and again and again. Now for most people, this is not going to be where they find their failure, but this is still a good idea to get you acclimated to what juggling is supposed to look like. So when you throw the 1 ball up into the air, what you want is for it to go above your head and you want it to peak somewhere between the center of your head and your opposite shoulder. And so once you feel pretty confident that you can get 1 ball up in the air pretty routinely, more or less where you want it to go, then you can add the 2nd ball. And this is most of the time where people find their failure. So what you want to do is not exactly what you'd expect. A lot of people think that juggling is kind of a circular pattern like this. What you actually want to do is you want to throw the 1st ball up, and right when it peaks, then you throw the 2nd ball up. And there's kind of a pattern to the sound. You throw, throw, catch, catch. So throw, throw, catch, catch, just like that. And that's what you're looking for. Now, like I said, this is where most people find their failure. They just have a difficult time either getting both throws out or getting them out in the right direction or catching both balls. And that's perfectly fine because once you have found your failure, the next thing that you want to do is you want to up the frequency of your failure. So if we go back to music, if you are having trouble with a particular chord change, for example, it's going to take you a long time to practice that particular change if you play through the whole song in order to get to that chord change. If you want to up the frequency of your failure, just practice that 1 chord change over and over and over and over again, completely divorced from the rest of the song. Now with juggling, there's a lot of ways that you can up the frequency of your failure as well. So for example, there's going to be a lot of dropping of your juggling balls when you're practicing. And so if you have a ball that is rolling away from you or is going way far away, then in order for you to repeat your failure again and again, you actually have to walk somewhere, you have to pick it up, and then you have to try again. So if you want to up the frequency of your failure, the best way that you can do it with juggling is to practice in front of a couch. And this is where I practice just about all of my juggling tricks when I'm first learning them, because then I don't have to take the whole time to bend over. I can just grab it right off the couch and get started again and again and again. And of course, a bed will work perfectly fine. If you can have something that's up against a wall, then a lot of times if you throw it forward, it can bounce off the wall and come back. And that is a whole lot better. Now, when you're practicing juggling, what's interesting is that the mistakes that people make are very predictable, which I guess is true of most skill toys. And the predictable mistake that people make is when they throw up the first ball and then they try to throw the second ball, they throw the second ball forward. Now, I'm not quite sure why that happens, but that is a predictable mistake. So once you have found your failure and you have upped the frequency of your failure, you've created a situation where you can practice it faster and faster and faster, then the third thing that you want to do is you want to focus on your failure. And what I mean is you want to focus on that one moment, that little teeny thing that is causing you to fail. So with juggling, if you are having trouble with the second throw, if that's where your pattern is getting thrown off, then you need to kind of give all of your mental attention, all of your focus onto just that one throw. Now, you might be able to do that and still keep the pattern going. If you throw the first ball up, you can kind of give your mental focus to that second throw and try to get that just perfect. But a lot of times that's a little bit too much work at first. And so what I would recommend that you do if you're having trouble where you're throwing that second ball forward or it's just not going where you want it to go, I say don't even worry about catching the first ball. Just throw the first ball up and then make sure that you get that second throw perfect, because that allows you, again, to focus on that one moment and you can kind of get your brain acclimated to succeeding where you once failed. And once you start to succeed at getting that second throw under control, then you can go back and you can put it together with the first throw and you can try again that throw, catch, catch until you find success. So once you have found your failure, you have upped the frequency of your failure, you have begun to focus on your failure, eventually you're going to start to fix your failures, which means that you need to go on to the next step, which is to force another failure. And in another sense, you could kind of think this is just finding a failure again, but if you like to think about moving forward, I think forcing another failure, it just sounds better. And so really what you're doing is you're just trying to find what's the next step, what's the next smallest thing that I can attack. And so again, with juggling, what you want to do is most of the time when we're practicing, we're starting the pattern off with the same hand, and usually it's our dominant hand where this red bag is. And so you throw, catch, catch, but now the ball is in your non-dominant hand. So what I want you to do is I want you to try juggling by starting with your non-dominant hand. And you'll be surprised. Sometimes that'll be really simple for some people, and sometimes that'll throw you way off, and it'll be like starting from scratch. But that's a good way to go. And then once you are able to confidently do one pass starting with your dominant hand, one pass starting with your non-dominant hand, then try to go back and forth without stopping. So throw, catch, catch, throw, catch, catch. Now, once you are kind of gradually forcing failure after failure and you're making these incremental steps, you will need to move on to 3 balls. And so with 3 balls, it's really exactly the same as what you've been doing. You just continue to throw and catch. And the one new thing that you need to know is that you are going to start with whatever hand is holding 2 balls as opposed to 1. Other than that, it is exactly the same. You are just going to throw a ball, and before it comes down, you just throw the next ball. Now, when you're thinking about kind of forcing the next failure, what is the next smallest thing that you can do? So far, we've been doing 2 throws and 2 catches. So what you want to do with juggling is you want to try adding a 3rd throw. So throw, catch, catch. Oh, you see that one almost got away from me. And that's pretty typical when you're first learning how to juggle. It's going to feel a little bit out of control every incremental step you make. But once you've got it down, force that next failure, and you can kind of move on and continue to succeed and grow. The last piece of advice I want to give you is that learning to practice is just like learning anything. It's something that you have to build up over time. Just because you know what to do doesn't mean that you're going to be able to sustain doing it. And that is especially true when you're trying to constantly force yourself into the next failure. You know, if you're putting yourself in the situation where you're constantly failing because you're constantly moving forward, that repetition of failure can actually cause you a certain amount of a mental and emotional grief, and it can even sometimes feel like physical pain. And so what I recommend that you do, even as you're practicing juggling, is, you know, sit down and practice, or stand up and practice, and just practice as long as you can, but see how long it takes before your frustration level just gets totally off the charts. And then the next time you practice, just bump up the time just a little bit. And again, it's that same incremental growth that we're looking for. And what you'll find over time is that eventually you're going to get to a point where the frustration just kind of melts away completely, because it starts to dawn on you that failure is not an end. It doesn't say something about you. It doesn't say you are a failure. Failure is a tool. Failure is something that you can use to get you to the next place you want to go. So many times when we fail, we condemn ourselves instead of realizing, this is an opportunity for me to grow. And so take these tools, learn how to juggle, use them to fulfill whatever ambitions you've just been sitting on. And when you do have success, tell us about them. I would absolutely love to hear about it. So thanks so much for watching this video. Until next time, we'll see you.